Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Build Up Fearless Culture webinar. My name is Gustavo Razzetti, and I'm going to be your host today. So I'm excited to be here, excited to having you joining us. By the way, I just posted a message on the chat. I mean, if you want to share where you're joining us from, use the chat to share. I mean, we usually have people from all over the world. But the most important thing is also if you want to share, why are you here today? So what drove you to enroll to this webinar? What are your expectations? What do you want to learn? And why are you here? So we can get started. So once again, use the chat to share with us where are you joining us from and why are you here? It's usually a little bit of delay between it's live, but the people from Police Island, is that South Carolina? Tyler from San Diego in California. We have people from Madison, Wisconsin. Awesome. Lynn says that she wants, she's here because she wants to improve upon the culture of their team. We have people from Police Island also. Oh, wow. I like to Google that place. I'm not familiar with it. So we have more people joining us. I'm going to get started. So once again, thank you for being here. As I mentioned, my name is Gustavo Razzetti. I'm the CEO and founder of Liberationist. We are a culture design firm. I mean, we help teams and organizations design fearless culture. And that's one of the topics we love the most. So we're going to enjoy today's workshop as we continue to have more people. Someone says from Canada, people that are looking for ideas and strategy on intentionally design culture. People that are excited about the topic. So great. So as you continue sharing, I'm going to get into the topic of today. So what we do, just very brief, so you know about our company and our approach, we help organizations and teams design the culture, and that can happen at a macro level, to map where's the culture today, where they want to take it, or it can be at a micro level where we get on specific blocks of areas like psychological safety, purpose, values, meetings, rules, or feedback areas that the company wants to address. And we also help clients that want to address cultural tensions, the things that are getting in the way of doing their best work and helping their employees work smarter and faster. So in today's webinar, and connecting a little bit with your expectations and where you're here today, basically, I'm going to share the fearless culture model and what's important, what differentiates fearless cultures from fearful ones. We're going to talk into particular actions that you can take, even if you're a consultant, a team member, or a leader, to promote participation, collaboration, and innovation. And throughout this session, I'm going to be sharing a lot of examples. At some point, we're going to have some participation. And I'm going to leave time at the end so you can ask any questions. We can have a conversation and stay as long as you want to be here. So quick question for you guys. So we're talking about fearless culture. And the end, as I mentioned before, is we're trying to get the best out of our teams, out of our people. So what do you think is preventing your team or your clients from doing the best work of their lives? In terms, think about in behaviors, mindset, aspects of the culture, emotions, what's getting in the way and preventing people from doing the best work of their lives? If you want to use the chat, that would be fantastic. So we have Anisha saying fear of failure, fear of being vulnerable, vulnerability, poor management practices, people that are afraid of making mistakes, the sense of entitlement that could happen both at employee or management level or across the board in the culture. Anything else? People are too busy judging what others are doing or not doing. That's a great point. And instead of them doing stuff, they're always looking at others and blaming, management friction, Moshe is sharing too, no, yeah, if people are not getting along, if they're not working together, how can you expect the rest of the people to do so? That's fantastic. So thank you for sharing. One of the key issues, I mean, we know that fear and silence have a huge impact, and they're not just effects, but they're also symptoms of something bigger happening at a company level. This data point from Gallup, it's really frightening. I mean, I've been sharing this many times, but still it gets me like, wow, no? Only 3 out of 10 employees agree that their opinions count at work. Put the other way, no, 70% of the employees across the board believe that their opinions doesn't matter. So that basically they're going to be ignored. People are going to laugh at them. People are going to judge them or criticize them, as some of you just mentioned. So this is critical, because at the end, we have a lot of people that they want to share, they want to participate, they want to collaborate, but they stay silent. And the cost of silence affect not just employees from, for example, self-censoring. They stay quiet, and sometimes you are watching a team member in a meeting, they're not saying anything, and you don't know if they are paying attention or they're just detached or they don't care. And this basically gets worse and worse through time, because we start thinking as a team, not because we agree, because groupthink is about, okay, everyone aligns with the rest in order to avoid conflict. We're afraid, as some of you said, of making mistakes. This makes people unhappy because they're always trying to not commit errors, to make sure that no one's going to attack them or criticize them. And then participation, engagement goes down. And we end with a culture that's basically mediocre, full of fear, and also in many cases promoting unethical behavior, from simple stuff, from employees not showing up and saying that they are sick when they're not, to people actually stealing, breaking the rules, or anything you can imagine because they are not happy. So this is a critical issue. And this takes us to today's topic. When we talk about companies that are fearful versus fearless, what's the key indicator? One of the things that we observe, not only analyzing different organizations across the world, but also with working with our clients, is that usually most companies, they don't lack ideas. They have people that are talented. They have ideas that are around the company in different places. They have, most of the time, the resources they need. But what they lack is a conducive culture. So basically, people have great ideas, but they die. They never see the light of day, because either no one gives them permission to experiment, or because the team is discussing all the time the idea, and they fail to land and agree on what they need to do and then kick off the project. So the ideas are there, but the culture doesn't let that talented people and those ideas to grow and thrive. This chart illustrates some of the key elements and the difference between having a fearful or a fearless culture. And this is not a black or white state, but I think this helps understand both types of cultures. On one hand, we're driven by fear, anxiety, blaming. When things go wrong, who's guilty? Who are we going to point our fingers to? They're control-driven, in terms of trying to be on top of who's doing what. As one of you mentioned, they're very hierarchical. People are not aligned. They might be aligned on certain decisions, but on the long, big picture, what they're trying to achieve together, that's not what's happening. They don't tolerate mistakes. They usually work silos. And for most people, having information is like having power. So I'm not going to share or budget or data or decisions or whatever, because that makes me feel powerful. So in the end, these are companies that tend to be more cruel. People suffer being there. They're driven by perfectionist mindsets. And we're going to talk about that. Perfectionism is not doing great. It's having the bar so high that then nothing is good enough. So at the end, you do nothing. You, as a company, end paralyzed. On the other hand, when we're talking about fearless cultures, they're driven by passion, self-awareness, responsibility, so more positive emotions and behavior. They promote autonomy. They trust people. They give them room to make decisions, to take their own chances. In that sense, companies live by their purpose. And I'm going to address this later, but it's not just having a purpose, but it's actually making tough decisions because of that purpose. they see mistakes as stepping stones. So the mistake is not the end, but the beginning of something new. It's the beginning of learning, it's the beginning of improvement, no? And that's why they're much more open. They default to open, and they believe that sharing information, sharing the key decisions, sharing discussions at the top level is like fuel that's going to help people grow. So they also practice a regular feedback as well, and they're very open instead of hiding. That defines that fear cultures as more human, more agile in the way they operate. They're faster, they're more adaptive, and they are much more experimental, more open to innovation. In that sense, fearless cultures transcends limitation. No? So we see people, not just the formal leaders, but overall team members leading, no? And acting from a place of courage in terms of what they say, what they do, how they make decisions. They prioritize doing what's right in the long run as an organization, what's right for the company, what's right for people over what's easy, no? And that's the difference between having values and living your values. They encourage people to have courageous conversations, to challenge themselves. Leaders are okay to being challenged. And at the end, they liberate the untapped power of the whole company. In terms of results, so this is not just, it sounds great, I want to be in that side, the fearless culture, but there's a lot of research that shows that companies that embrace these mindsets and behavior, they perform better. So because we know that culture is a multiplier, a positive culture amplifies positive results. As you can see here, no, we see that these companies show superior business performance against similar companies in the same industry and business, according to McKinsey, that could go anywhere from 30 to 200%, no, superiority. They're also much more innovative than the other ones, and they're more open and sometimes even ready to transform, no, because the people have the mentality and the right mindset to adapt. So in our particular case, the model that we use, the framework that we use, not only to come up with this idea of fearless culture, but also to help our clients where they are, what's their existing culture, and how to design and improve theirs, we use the culture design canvas. This is a framework that has 10 blocks, but basically has 3 areas. At the core, here at the center, what we call the core, is basically what's the long-term definition? What are we trying to achieve? What impact do we want to create as a culture? No? It includes purpose, the values, the behaviors that are rewarded, but those that are not accepted or are punished, and what are the key priorities? Then, on the right side, we have the emotional culture that's defined by promoting psychological safety, how we create a culture of feedback, and the rituals that teams use to connect and work together. And last but not least, on the left side, we have the function, culture, how we work together. What are the norms and rules that define our expected behaviors, how we do convene and collaborate through different types of meetings, and how we make decisions. So this connects to the 3 elements of 3 characteristics of fearless culture. The first one is sharing a future. No? We are aligned, not just on one decision, we're aligned on what are we trying to have? What's the kind of future we want for us as a company, as a team? On the emotional side, the sense of belonging, no? When we work together, when we act together, we feel fearless, we feel courageous, and we can do a lot of things, and we're able to take more risks. It's not just on an individual basis, but as a team. And then the other part is being more adaptable. No, we can work smarter and faster, no, because of the norms and rules, the way we meet, etc., as I shared before. So now I'm going to dive deeper into these notions. We're going to start with the core, no? And when it comes to purpose, as I mentioned, there's a lot of brands, companies, people that says I'm purpose-driven. But there's a difference between having a purpose and actually living it, and especially, and most importantly, when it's going to cost you. Having a purpose means that you need to make tough choices. So take the case of Airbnb. Airbnb's purpose is create a world where anyone can belong anywhere. Airbnb is about hosting. Not only the company promotes people from hosting strangers in their houses, but actually they promote their own employees to do exactly the same, because that's the culture of hosting. And what happened a few months ago when Airbnb had to cut close to 20% of its workforce, they basically say farewell to those people like a host. They didn't just fire people, they didn't hire like a consultant to take care of that and pay maybe an outplacement company to save the day and say, okay, I'm done, and remove the guilt. But basically, these guys, I mean, treated people like a real host. They changed and adjusted certain rules to make sure that everyone could basically be eligible for stock options, no? So they could convert those even if they have worked for maybe half or 1/3 of the time needed to be eligible. They extended the health benefits, but most importantly, the CEO wrote a letter that was actually published publicly for everyone to see, talking about the decision, talking about this is not about the people, but it was very hard because how coronavirus was affecting the travel business, no? And most importantly, they create like a directory of Airbnb's former employees, like alumni, recommending each of those people and helping them find a job. So they didn't just say, you know what, I'm losing money, you're gone, see you. Basically, as a good host, they pay farewell to those people with respect because they liked them and they didn't want to let them go, but they couldn't afford it. So they make sure that that was done in a very humane, very brave, and also in some cost expensive because it cost the company money. It wasn't just about cutting them off loose. Patagonia is a perfect example. They redefined as an organization their purpose, no, a few years ago, that to say we're in business to save the planet. And this for many companies sounds like great. Yeah, everyone wants to be there, but everything that Patagonia does really aligns with this. In most cases, for example, they say no to doing business with someone if that particular company is not aligned with these goals of actually saving the planet. So Patagonia will review the environmental policies of their clients and vendors and so on before agreeing to do business with them. Another example of their behavior is they bail employee out of jail. I mean, I'm not talking if they stole something or commit a crime, but basically sometimes their employees, so most of the time, are so passionate that they're also there helping promote Patagonia's cause. And that could get them into trouble. And maybe they get arrested because they were part of a peaceful protest and challenging legislators or whatever when it comes to promote environmental friendly laws. So Patagonia not only pays for them to get out of jail, but also if they were arrested with a family member, they would pay for them too. They would pay for their lawyer. But also, instead of discounting those days of vacations or whatever, they would still pay when they were for maybe a couple of hours or days in jail, they would still pay for that time as if they have been working, no? So this might sound extreme for some. This might sound, well, I don't think I'm getting there. But it's making a point that if you have a purpose, you really need to be committed to live it fully, not just when it looks good. I talk about psychological safety being a key ingredient or element of culture, right? But the most important thing is like how we create not just safe spaces, but also fearless spaces, no? So psychological safety is this idea that when I'm part of a team, I feel safe enough to take risks, to say what I think, to be myself, to challenge the status quo, to ask questions, to provide feedback without the fear of being ignored or attacked or criticized or even maybe losing my job. So bringing every voice is critical for any organization. We know that in most companies, 80% of the conversations are managed by only 20% of people. So whenever you're in a meeting, think and look around, even if it's virtual, you see a lot of pictures there on Zoom. How many of those people are really speaking up? Because psychological safety, it's about making sure that everyone's voice is being heard, because everyone, basically, we heard employees, we want everyone to contribute and to share their ideas as well. So they create this quiet ambassador network to promote channels and practices to help those quiet voices to participate. Sometimes people are shared with documents and stuff, and instead of sharing their feedback on a meeting, they can put the feedback and comments on a website that then is shared with the rest of the team. So they created different practices to make it simpler and easier for people who are quieter, maybe they are more introverted, to speak up and share the stuff. So Slack, the communication app, basically have I mean, they preach with what they sell. Slack is all about collaboration, openness, and that's the way they lead. They're default to open in many aspects. No? So for example, the CEO usually shares everything openly instead of, if there's an issue with the engineering team, if there's an issue with marketing, instead of addressing with those guys, he wants to share every issue openly. Why, you would say, no? Why don't talk to, because it's a way of making sure that everyone knows what's going on. As I mentioned, in fearful cultures, information is power. In fearless culture, information is fuel for other people to grow. Another thing that they have, it's critical, it's what they call the beef tweets. So they have a lot of channels where people can share their complaints. And this one in particular is about complaining about their own product. So people, I don't like about this or that about our product. How can we fix it? So it's not just promoting people to complain. That's not the goal. But basically want people to be able to express what they don't like as well. But most importantly, to make sure that someone can take that complaint and fix it and improve it. That's part of being default to open. We talk about mistakes, and you guys talk a lot about in the first comments about not they're afraid of making mistakes. I think there was Aline who mentioned that. And someone else, I can see here, it was Aisha also said the fear of failure, the fear of vulnerability, no? So how can we reward mistakes, no? Tata, the automotive company, a global company now, but basically originally from India, its CEO believes that mistakes are like gold mines, no? So rather than hide them, we need to look for them, we need to celebrate them. And they have an award actually, no? That's called Dare to Try. And the purpose is to give this award to the most challenging, most risk-taking kind of a person who basically experimented and went beyond their comfort zone to do something different. Because the company is trying to encourage this mentality. So there's a difference between saying we need to innovate, we need to take risks, we need to make mistakes, and actually rewarding them. Once again, it's not about saying, hey, let's make mistakes, but it's about let's experiment. And mistakes, as I mentioned, is a stepping stone to get into a better place. Fearless cultures promote courageous organizations. You know? I talk about Patagonia, and one of the things that they practice is, instead of, like in many companies, the managers going around and telling people, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, and always being the ones who have all the answers and all the solutions, Patagonia encourage managers to embrace intellectual humility, and instead of telling people and looking into others, you mentioned that too, no? The companies where someone is looking into other people and observing what they do and telling them, you should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. In Patagonia, managers actually are trained to request feedback rather than giving it. So when they go into a meeting and the meeting is over, hey guys, what do you think about the meeting? What could have what could have gone better? What could I do next time to improve my participation in this meeting? Or maybe it's about after a decision, a manager goes and regroups their team and says, look, we made this call. What do you think? Was it right? Why did it work? Didn't work? So basically, it's about requesting feedback, and that creates like a domino effect, where when people see that their managers are open to not only to request, but also open to listen to their feedback, they're going to start doing the same. They're going to go and they're going to start requesting feedback to their peers, thus creating a more open culture. Another practice, which is interesting, this comes from Spotify. Usually companies get stuck when it comes to in the area of feedback, looking into the past. You did this 10 months ago. I remember we were running this project and the team didn't do that. So we keep rehashing mistakes and we get stuck into the past. Spotify has this 70, 20, and 10 formula, which helps the company focus into the future versus into the past. When they're talking about any kind of feedback, even if it's a review with their managers or ongoing conversations or team retrospectives, only 10% of the time, it's a focus on what happened. 20 is on the present, And 70% of that conversation is about what needs to happen, what do we want to happen, how can we make it happen, and how can we work together, and what's needed in order for us to achieve that goal. So they use feedback to design a better future versus to rehash what happened. I'm going to skip this. So we talk about different types of ways of encouraging courageous conversation through feedback and psychological safety. And I want to hear from you, like in your company, in your team, or if you're a consultant with your clients, how do you promote, how do you get other people to embrace courageous conversations, to address conflict in the open, to be default to open, like I mentioned, Slack, or share feedback in a more regular basis to help the team kind of learn and grow? If you can share how do you promote, or your teams or a company or clients, how do you promote courageous conversation at work? Moshe says surveys. Do you mind expanding a little bit what kind of surveys? So we have Dina, lead by example, model it, which is very critical, no? So if we want people to be courageous, we need to start being courageous ourselves, either if we are a formal leader or not. Anyone else wants to share, like, how can we promote courageous conversation, or how are you if you're doing it already, which is good. At the start of the exercise, restrict management from responding, listen and set aside your ego. That's a good practice, not critical for psychological safety. Give room to other people to speak up, let the managers listen, don't interrupt. Lynn says, my biggest challenge, people don't open up. Asking on a regular basis for feedback on specific topics, sometimes anonymous, other times not. That's great. That is not always anonymous, because we need to make people be comfortable talking about in the open feedback. And I like the idea of regular, no? So sometimes you need to start small, but it's important to create that cadence that people get to speak on a regular basis until they get used to more and more. And that's part of creating a culture of regular feedback. So thank you for sharing. So last but not least, a part of what we describe as the sense of belonging, this emotional culture that we need to have, fearless cultures basically practice rituals that are transformational. Most companies have team rituals. Sometimes they're not aware, but team rituals are not just celebrating. They're not just going and having beers with people and have fun. Rituals define the identity of a team and actually help transform their behaviors for better. So this is an example of something that we did with a client of ours a few years ago. This client, like many perfectionist companies, they basically failed to launch, no? So they were always like thinking and thinking and thinking. They never approved the project, no? They have a lot of great ideas, as I mentioned before, no? Companies are full of ideas, but they don't put them into market. So we created this ritual that is having like a red light that says on air, and at some point, anyone can push the bottom and turn that light on. That means, hey guys, we need to move into action, no? So it's kind of a calling people out and making them aware we are going nowhere. We're just talking and talking and talking, but we're not acting, no? So this is a moment like, okay, when we push that bottom and the light turns on and says on air, that means, guys, we need to make a call, we need to launch, we need to do something and stop just talking about it, no? Moving into action. So Zappos, the online shoe retailer, practices a ritual that's kind of a rite of passage, no? It not only helps welcome people into their culture, but also it differentiates and separates, no, those who are newbies from those who adopt the culture, from those who don't want to stay and leave. And basically they offer a pay to quit bonus. After some time, after weeks, people like being in the company and basically working there, no, during the immersion program, they offer the new employees like a 30,000 or something like that check, and they say, you know what, a bonus. This is an offer. So they offer, as they call them, if you don't want to, if you're not happy here, if you don't think that you're ready to be one of us Sabonians, as they like to call themselves, take the money and leave. Go find a job somewhere else. And we know that this is a lot of money, especially for young people that are just getting started. They say, well, maybe I take 3,000, 5,000 bucks and I go somewhere else. The thing is, most people, no, like 93.7, something like that, a huge majority says no to the offer. So this plays really well into Zappos, not only because the few people that are not really ready to be part of the culture, they leave, but actually those who decide to stay, they end thinking that the company is the best place ever because they had to say no to money. So this is reverse psychology 101. Now, the moment you say something, you say no to something, basically what you say yes to something. In this case, I want to be part of Zappos culture, you become a fan for life. No? So this is a great example of rite of passage using rituals. There's another ritual here, like it comes from a Moringa-based company that they were also experiencing this challenge of perfectionism. They weren't celebrating things. No victory, no matter how small or big, felt really important. So the team was really disengaged and demotivated because they felt that the bar was always so high that then nothing felt good enough. So this guy decided to install like a large gong and start celebrating small victories. Anyone from the company could go and bang the gong, and when people heard that sound, they gathered together and see what happened. The person who basically called everyone in, share the win, and let people go. So this is a simple ritual, but as I mentioned, it's not just to have fun. The ritual is create a sense of connection, is sending the message that, hey, we need to celebrate every victory. It's sending a message that we're making progress and creates this momentum, which is great for a company that was suffering from not acknowledging people's wins. So moving to the third part of the canvas, we have the more functional part, how we work together in a faster and smarter way. In this case, we're going to start from top-down decision-making. No? So fearless cultures are those in where authority is not only shared, but also distributed. No? Many companies say that they delegate decision-making, but then they don't give people the authority. No? So it's just words, but not power. In the case of Netflix, not only they say that they encourage people to make more decisions, but on the other hand, managers are forbidden to make decisions on behalf of their team members. The role of managers is to provide wisdom, to provide context, not the solution. So if I'm about to launch a new season of a successful series and I'm the project manager, I can go to my manager and say, you know what happened in the past? What were the successes? What are the things that we want to avoid? So give me context so I know and I can make the right decision. But in the end, it's me who has complete authority to make decision. I'm a manager, not only won't get in the way, but he shouldn't. No? So it's very clear how authority is distributed and what are the roles. So another thing that's important when it comes to decision making, it's why not involving people? I mean, as I mentioned before, when we talk about psychological safety, we want to hear everyone's voices, but it's not just because we want to be respectful and inclusive, but most importantly, because people can help us see a lot of things that we miss, can help us have better solutions. So in the case of Gravity Payments, a few months ago, they were also in the midst of saying, you know what, a business is going down because of the crisis, we can go bankrupt. What shall we do? The immediate recommendation from the finance team was, you know what, let's lay off 20% of the workforce and we save that money, boom, we're gonna survive. But the CEO, who's more open and have different attitudes, say, you know what, yeah, that sounds great, but that's what every company does. So he decided to regroup his team and talk to everyone openly and say, hey guys, this is the problem. We're going through this situation. We cannot support the company as is. We're gonna go bankrupt. So I want to hear solutions. So through the brainstorm process, many people came with the idea, well, let's have a 20% salary cut across the board, and that would save us 20% of the costs. And people say, yeah, that might work, but you know what? Someone raised their hand. You know, I just had a kid. I need to raise my family. I cannot afford a 20% cut. That's really going to put me in a bad situation. I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage. But then someone else said, you know what? I'm in a good condition. I'm living with my parents. I can take maybe 50 for a couple of months or through the end of the year. That, I mean, I'm not happy, but I can do it for the team. And then when people start having this open conversation, they go into, instead of cutting salaries or getting rid of people, like black and white approach, they started having a more collective approach in which different people took different salary cuts. And basically at the end, the company was able to save the money, and most of the people were happy, even those that decided to take a higher salary cut. No? So once again, I think it's an example of smart companies that instead of being afraid and just getting rid of the problem, they say, guys, we have an issue, here's the, and they tap into the collective wisdom of all their employees. Talking about meetings, no? So we know that meetings are, someone called them a necessary evil. Not the problem that most meetings suck. They're ineffective, they're inefficient, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have meetings. We should have effective and well-designed meetings that people love to attend. In that sense, one thing that comes to mind is how can we break down silos, no? When companies have a town hall meetings where people can, like they happen at Spotify, Airbnb, Slack. It used to happen that way at Google, but they changed it a few months back, where people can get together in front of their leaders, ask any questions, and the leaders are obliged to address any question, no matter how critical or sensitive it is. Well, that creates where there are meetings that people want to be part of. They're not just the leaders sharing PowerPoints with a beautified version of reality. Another thing that's important is breaking the silos. When it comes, for example, Airbnb, they have executive meetings there where people are not part of, but they have a commitment where they shared everything that was discussed with that meeting, all the notes with every employee, regardless of their seniority, within 24 hours. So that helps that people know that, well, when the leaders are meeting, they're not just waiting time and talking about us or doing whatever, they're actually trying to get things done, and actually they're sharing so we can keep them accountable. Amazon has very interesting practices, no? They like small and what they call silent meetings, no? Jeff Bezos has a formula that says you shouldn't hold a meeting where the attendees size is larger than the people that can be fed with 2 pizzas. No, so he has the 2 pizza team formula. No, depending on how much your team eats, but that makes up maybe you shouldn't have more than 6 people or 7 people in the room. They also have a no PowerPoint stuff, so you don't have people presenting and then the rest just watching there. They want to have more interaction. So what they do is someone that basically is going to lead the conversation on a particular topic that the team needs to address prepares like what they call the memo. And it's basically a document that takes hours and hours of crafting that basically outlines what's the issue, what's the critical information that people need to know, what are the different possibilities. So basically informs people. They call them these silent meetings because people spend the first 15 minutes reading the document, taking notes, asking questions, no, or writing the questions actually. And then once everyone's ready, everyone's prepared, the people start sharing their questions, their feedback, comments, reactions, etc. And last but not least, the last portion of the canvas that covers the functional culture is about norms. And in the case of fearless cultures, they work with rules and norms that treat people as grown-ups. They don't define rules that tell them what to do, but basically they give criteria, but they trust people. So take, for example, Atlassian, the Australian software company. They offer people a holiday before they start. And this might sound weird for most people because actually they're paying, I don't know, $5,000 for people to take a vacation even before the first day at work. They haven't even show up at the office or at the virtual office, and they're already getting vacation. The purpose behind is the company believes that employees that are rested, that can take a break in between jobs and relax, whatever, they're going to start fresher, they're going to be more effective. So they're investing in their employees. But the message also is, we trust you and we're giving you benefits even before you start. Many companies, well, you're going to have 60 days or 90 days of a trial before we give you health insurance. So they test people. In this case, they're saying, look, we are hiring you because we trust you from day one, even before day one. No? So this is great to show that your rules, that you care about people and you trust them. Netflix has a very flexibility in many of the formulas. For example, they revisited their travel policy, and it's basically do what's best for Netflix. No, in the past, like many companies, they have an explanation of how much money you could spend per night, the per diem, depending on your hierarchy, the type of hotel or airfare you should take, etc. Now it's about people deciding, depending on the urgency, the criteria, the challenge, how far, whatever, you spend as much money as you want. It's on you. The most important thing about this that drives many people crazy and say, this is not gonna work. Not only it worked for Netflix, but actually the company saved money. They gave people freedom. People were excited to make the right choices without being controlled or told what to do. And actually the company saved money. Flexibility is another key issue, no? Like having a lot of people reach out and say, well, how shall we manage this new world, the new normal? And many companies say, well, we're not going to go back to work. Some people say, we're going to force people to go back to work. But the most important thing is, what can we offer alternatives? Like Twitter did when they announced that everyone can work from home forever. They didn't say that everyone will work. They told people, for now, we're going to continue working remotely. But when times come and the offers are ready and they're safe for you to come back, you can choose. If you want to stay at work from home, that's great. But if you want to work at an office, that's also great. So smart companies basically offer alternatives. Their rules are flexible, but they're also, like in the case of Slack, they're human. They realize that at some point people need to take a break. They cannot always, like many managers expect, out of fear and control, that people are always connected to Zoom or the email or to Teams or Slack, and they're always working. And I like, this is from Slack, that they say, work hard and go home. And at 6 p.m., people, if they were at the office, they couldn't, because the CEO walks around to make sure that everyone leaves. And the company employees are forbidden to use Slack, the app, after 6 p.m. or during weekends, because they understand, yes, we are all about connectivity, connection, collaboration, but we also need to rest. And that shows that their rules and their approach to work, it's a human one. So summarizing, and before we jump into the Q&A and comments, fearless cultures are defined by those companies that basically live their purpose, even if they cost them. They don't just have a purpose, they actually make tough decisions based on it. They have a fearless space, not just a safe one, that encourages continuous conversations, challenging, courageous dialogues to address conflict, to find new solutions, to become more innovative. This company address transformational rituals that not only bring people together, that create fun, but also help them overcome perfectionism, fear, the lack of decision-making, analysis paralysis, and so on and so forth. Authority is shared and distributed. They practice and design meetings that people want to attend, not just have to attend because they're forced. People have the freedom, but also they are experiences that people really value and appreciate. And last but not least, the rules are flexible. They treat them like grown-ups. They trust them rather than telling them what they need to do and treat them as kids. So if you want to continue developing your skills and you want to get deeper into this beyond a webinar, which always is fast and you get just a certain point and a framework, there's 3 steps that you can take. The first, you can go to liberationist.org/toolkit, and we have, but over 30 different tools that are free for you to download to start working in different aspects, from purpose, addressing tensions, experiments, reframe the loss, of course, the culture design canvas that I shared. There's a lot of tools that we have. Not only you can download the canvas and use them with your team, with your clients, but you're going to find a facilitation guide that walks you through each of the steps and has examples and etc. So I want to make sure that you can benefit from that. We already have over 20,000 people that are subscribed and use our tools and stuff. And once again, this is for you to use for free. So it's no trick and an offer because they are there. Same with our blog. I mean, I have written over 500 articles in the past 5 years or so, regardless, designing company culture, teamwork, and leadership. And there are a lot of stuff that you can benefit from and go deeper into most of the things, no? The articles about rules, about feedback, and et cetera, et cetera. You can go to liberationist.org, the-blog, and there you can browse by topic, by team, whatever. We have a group of the top 21, the articles that people like the most and have read the most, and also our full archive. And you can subscribe if you want to receive our weekly newsletter that has not only articles, but insights, tools, and book recommendations and articles from other people as well, not just from us, and stuff to get yourself into that. And last but not least, if you even want to go deeper, besides reading and besides stuff, we have 2 programs that we're offering. One is the Culture Design Masterclass, which is a 7-hour online workshop for only 12 participants. We have dates there for September 11, October 2nd, and October 9th. We have more than 200 or 300 people that have already graduated. You can go into that link, liberationist.org/masterclass. And then we have a program that, like this workshop, called the Fearless Culture Program, that has 8 modules. So basically you go, each module is a 2.5-hour workshop per week. It's a total of 8 weeks starting in October, where you go through purpose, core values, feedback, psychological safety, and so on and so forth. And you can go to liberations.org/fearless-culture. If you decide to join by September 6th, you can save $300. The course is $1,250, but you can buy it for $950 before that date. And once again, if you're interested, I would say that you hurry up, because once all our courses are live and they're limited. So we usually have 12 people. So they're small, so people can go deeper, interact with other participants from across the world, and do a lot of exercises, because they are very action driven. So once again, the 3 steps: download tools with their facilitation guides, check our blog, subscribe if you want, and then we have these 2 programs, the Culture Design Program and the Fearless Culture, that's kicking off in October. So I want to hear your comments and questions now that we walk through the elements of what define a fearless culture and the difference between a fearless and a fearful culture. And let me know if you have any comment about everything I share, about the classes, about the content, or there's any question or comment you have. I know that Lee mentioned something about her biggest challenge, creating a participation. So I would like to hear more about that as well. And while you're typing or thinking about your questions, I'm going to give you my email, because sometimes people don't like to ask questions in the open, or maybe something comes up and then you have a question and you want to reach out. You can reach out anytime. I usually try to take as many emails as possible from people to help them in their path to build better fearless cultures. And I'm going to also, you're going to get the recording of this webinar with links to some key articles and tools that you can use also to go deeper into the topic. So let me know if you have any comments or questions that you want to share. You can use the chat, of course. So we have Aline. Thanks for the session. My question is, who should be involved in the session forming the culture using the canvas? That depends on the company. So there are 2 processes. One part is mapping the current culture, and another is designing the future. For mapping the culture, we usually want to create like a hybrid teams. So when I say hybrid, for example, you want to see how, if it's a global company, you want to compare how the culture is perceived across different countries, but also across different hierarchies. So create different groups that map the current culture using the canvas. When it comes to designing the future state, we create groups that 2 or 3, sometimes 4 teams, that in one might be the CEO and someone from engineer. You can add maybe someone that's new to the company, has fresh eyes, and some employees that have been there forever. In another team, you have someone from HR, someone from marketing, different levels, different perspectives. and those people work in different versions, and then we integrate. No, so it all depends on the culture. But what we try to avoid is that a culture shouldn't be. Give me a second. I forgot to plug my computer. Well, like anyway. So basically, a culture shouldn't be just designed by HR or by a committee or by the CEO. Culture is a co-creation act because it's everything that people do. So understanding how the culture is perceived is not just what the CEO sees, that they always have a more idealized or beautified version, but also how other people see it, no? And the same when it comes to designing. So Moshe says, great webinar question. How do organization leaders know exactly that their employees in the different levels of the company are in tune with the culture they're trying to build? I say many times, even with cultures in design, that management don't know everything. Well, that it builds on what we were just talking. No, there are quantitative research, but also there are different practices when you're trying to understand where the culture is going on, or using the culture tensions map, which is a different tool that we have, Canvas, sorry, that helps understand what's going on and see other perspective. Usually there's no such alignment, as you say, and there's also usually a gap between what executives perceive about the culture and what people see. That's why we want to create these spaces. There's another tool I shared that's called the Stinky Fish, and it's a tool that's great to talk about the problems that are affecting the company culture and basically addressing what everyone's seeing and no one wants to talk about. No, it's the fish that's getting rotten and rotten because no one's taking care of it. And in that sense, you can basically use that tool to see what are the tensions that are affecting that culture and focus on those and tackle one at a time. I work with the engineers that have expressed an outright disinterest in any talks of culture. I'm observing a fear-driven culture. How do I get through to them? Well, that's a great thing. I mean, I know that many engineers believe that culture, it's something soft and fluffy, and people keep talking about culture being a soft thing. No, as I mentioned before, culture is built of alignment, is built of the emotional culture, is built of functional elements. So if you don't address those, you cannot function together. And actually, I share a couple of data points at the beginning, but there are many more that shows there's a direct connection between culture and business results. And usually companies that are not performing well is because they have a culture issue. No, so the first step is understanding what's driving that. No, you can have like one-on-one conversations with some of them to see, okay, what do they understand by culture? Because people have, I mean, sometimes people think that culture is going out together and having beers or lunch together or playing ping pong and having fun and emojis on the computers. And yeah, that could be part of the culture, but it's not. The culture is something much more bigger and deeper and important. So maybe the first step is to understand what do you understand by culture? Ask the people, no? So first you need to connect in what culture is. Second is, are there, as you mentioned, fear-driven issues? Probably they are, and people don't want to address culture because they're afraid that if they speak up, they're going to be punished. So the Stinky Fish, out of many, is a great exercise to start having those conversations, and usually people feel that on their own, and then they share it with another colleague, and then those two get together with another two, and so then there are teams sharing certain insights, and they are less about making it personal. It's X, Y, and Z bringing one issue, no? But once again, I make sure that you guys are talking about exactly the same when it comes to culture. Try to see if there's any fear, risk associated to addressing that, and then kick off the conversation. It's not an easy process, and many engineers don't like to address that. I see this in a lot of clients as well. No? Hope that helps. So we're almost on time. I don't know if anyone has one last comment or question before we close the today's session. Janice, thank you. How do you change the culture of a company without authority from the bottom up rather than from management? There's one thing that we talk, and I published an article that created a lot of tension the other day, very positive reaction, but also people say that, what's going on? That I address the power of subculture. So culture is not one thing. So the company has an overall culture that feeds off different subcultures. It could be culture from departments, culture from teams. So you can start from your team up, no? So if you, Moshe, are part of I don't know in which area of the company you work, but if you're part of a team, you guys can start designing the culture of that team, for example, and you can start setting what are the norms and rules, how do you want to create a culture of fit, but you can build a better practices and things within that team, and then you can actually bring more people to the table. So you don't necessarily need to basically wait for the CEO to approve that, no? I mean, sometimes subcultures should be connected to the overall cultures, but sometimes they need to act more like a refuge where people feel protected. And yeah, maybe in the broader culture, we don't like it, but here within this team, it's okay to speak up, it's okay to be creative, it's okay to be crazy, it's okay to challenge my boss, and people are welcoming. So it all depends. But I would say that usually, actually, even in companies that the CEO wants to change the culture, we never do it top down. We start from inside out. And that's why we have a lot of hybrid teams working on culture. So we're working with 3 projects currently, global companies, all of them. And it's not the CEO changing the culture, it's different people from the inside out through bigger definitions, but also small experiments that are put in practice in different places of the company, different departments, different countries. I hope that helps. So cool. Once again, thank you guys for being here, for spending a time. It was great. So I appreciate your company being here through this technology and sharing, because we need more people like you that are passionate about culture, that are open, that you have the right questions, the right mentality, and you're fearless, no? So fearless culture starts with fearless leaders, regardless of what's your title. And we need you guys to step up and continue spreading the word and making changes. And once again, changing a culture is not moving from A to B. It's an ongoing process. We're always shaping culture. Sometimes we're screwing it, sometimes we're making it better. And I would address that you start thinking less of moving from here to here and thinking of culture change like a work in progress that never ends. So thank you again, and look forward to seeing you and hearing from you soon. Bye-bye.